So why do we recycle? Because if we've done all those other things already, surely that is enough. But it's not, of course, because what we want to do is to be actively using the language that we've got. And we can only use it if we have it as an active component in our memory. So recycling it will keep it alive, as it were. So really good thing to do is to recycle. You want to use that vocabulary in different contexts, use it in different situations, because those different situations will add another layer to the meaning. And when we've got those different layers to the meaning, then the meaning is not fixed. We have more flexibility in the vocabulary that we're using. You can use personalized activities in recycling vocabulary. So imagine that you're recycling musical instruments, then you might get your learners to think about which ones they like and why. Yeah, so they're personalizing them. They're going, that one I don't really like because these ones I like because, and so on. You can include reference to multiple intelligences. So you might think that a language learner who was quite visual might like to take a word and perhaps draw something around it to demonstrate it or present it in a clearer way. Or if you had a learner who is highly auditory, then perhaps they might want to record themselves talking about that word. You can, of course, do simple things with young learners, something that we do a lot, I think, which is they've learned a word, they get a picture of that word, make sure that they've identified the word, and then do some nice coloring in around it. You will probably remember back to some of our earlier talks in which we identify that young learners spend a lot of time trying to figure things out. So fundamentally what they're doing is guessing. Yeah, they do intelligent guessing all the time about what they think something might mean, and then they will experience it again and then guess again and go, yes, I was right. So guessing the meaning of new words is an important language learning strategy. And it's the same kind of strategy that you use when learners give you an answer and you say, how do you know that? Yeah. Or where did you find that? Or can you explain to me why you chose that? So you want to get the same sort of strategy when it comes to vocabulary. So you've got a very difficult word, and it is, he was blah, blah, blah. So he was unhappy. Yeah, and you've got that word blah, blah, blah. So he was unhappy. What does blah, blah, blah mean? You can ask your learners and they will probably figure out that it means something like unhappy or something bad happened, and the reason they will know that is because of the use of the conjunction. So lots of little techniques you can use there for guessing the meaning of new words. You don't want to spend all your time guessing the meaning of new words because the level of exposure we get is probably not enough. Clearly, one of the strategies that good language learners use is they record. They record what they have learned. They make notes about it. You want to make your learners aware of that. And then clearly there's active memorization. You might want to explore with your students how they memorize. Can they make the memorization interesting, or is it just dull repetition? You might want to explore with them what their techniques are so that they can feel confident in the strategies that they're using. And of course, using a dictionary. It seems fairly straightforward using a dictionary, but there's a lot of information in a dictionary. There's things like the pronunciation. That's only available, I suppose, if they can read the IPA, unless, of course, you've got a good e-dictionary online, which I'm sure you have. But even within those dictionaries, you want to be looking at things like pronunciation, parts of speech, and then the different meanings, yeah, and those different meanings in different contexts. So dictionary skills are a good strategy that you can develop with your learners. And then, of course, one of the best strategies is either practicing with a friend, so deliberately practicing the new language together. So let's practice, la 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 la, or in fact practicing with yourself. We have already identified a large number of techniques you can use to build your fluency, and maybe you can incorporate those or some of those in class with your learners. So here we've got a number of reasonably common mistakes in the classroom that you might find are useful for some colleagues you know. So you can work through this with them and help them understand some parts of their language that can improve. So the first thing we're going to look at is we are going to the home, and you can see that on the right the suggested correction is we are going home. Now, of course, we are going to the home can be correct. The home means an institution. So if I said to you, I'm going to the home, you would probably think I meant I'm going to visit my elderly parent who's living with a lot of old people in a place that's called a home, but it's called the home. If young people have broken the law and perhaps they get sent somewhere for correction, then that place can also be called the home. So when you say we are going to the home, you mean to an institution. When you mean you're going to the place that you live, then you get we are going home. And of course, we are going home. Home is an adverb. And of course, you can't have we are going to home, because you won't get to as a preposition coming before an adverb. Okay, next we go to Beijing, and the corrected one is we are going to Beijing. Of course, you can say we go to Beijing, but it means one of two things, or maybe more. But one thing we go to Beijing means is this is what we regularly do. So we go to Beijing in the summer, yeah? We go to Beijing in October. It means that's what you do with some regularity. So that's meaning number one for we go to Beijing. The second meaning could be you've already got a timetable. It's already scheduled. It's fixed. You're going with a group of people. It's determined already. You all know about it, and that becomes we go to Beijing. So if you're referring to a timetabled event, you would say we go to Beijing on the 19th, for example. Whereas we are going to Beijing is not about the schedule. Yeah. We are going to Beijing is about a decision that you've made and a plan that you have made. So it's more personal than we go to Beijing, which is a scheduled event. Let's have a look at the next one. What this and what's this? Fairly common mistake, and difficult one to correct, because all we're really missing here is the verb. Yeah. What this sounds quite all right. All we're missing is that little s in between. So just a little reminder that sometimes folk, when they're going from Chinese to English, they drop the verb. And in this case, you clearly don't want to. This next one's interesting. What this? Because the interesting thing is that the speaker here has dropped the t, yeah? And they've dropped this, you know, and you can do that. You know, what do you want? Perfectly okay, yeah? What do you want? What do you want is not so okay. So the person who's saying what this, they're making some little progress in their language use, but unfortunately they've missed out the verb. And of course, when the verb goes in there, then also the t goes in there. So it becomes what's this? Okay, good. Next one, look my picture. Common enough mistake in this. The the preposition, and it's quite a dependent preposition. The person who's speaking has dropped the preposition after look. Yeah. Of course, if it's an imperative, yeah, look, which you mean, I'm telling you to do this, please look. Yeah, look. That's completely normal. But if you've got something that you're looking at, something in particular, if I said look, that's fine. If I was talking about a man, I'd have to say look at the man. Yeah, so you need that preposition if it's going to be followed by a noun form. Some nice examples in here. Some of them are relatively straightforward. The first one that we have here is sadder versus sad, and it's a fairly common mistake for those folk who've not had a lot of exposure to English, and that is they tend to add a vowel after a consonant at the end of a word, because that's very common in Chinese. Yeah, so instead of saying sad and finishing with a soft consonant, they have sadder, which is to finish with a consonant plus a vowel. The unfortunate outcome of that is it sounds like it's a comparative adjective. It sounds like he is sadder than she is. So we get a confusion there about the grammar of the word. Further, another example here, it's not so much wrong as just not very exciting. So a teacher can say, who can try? And that's okay. Who would like to try is a better model of language that you can use for your learners. You're introducing that modal verb would plus like, and it's giving them a better model of language that they can work with. Who want to join is a nice, interesting problem, because who in English is almost always singular. Yeah. So when we say who want to join, in English we say who wants to join, even though you're thinking that it could be anyone in a big group. Yeah. So that who rather will be grammatically singular, not plural, even though the idea might sound plural. She draw basketball. Common enough mistake. We know that verb forms don't change in Chinese, but of course they change in English. And this one is just a matter of increasing practice and awareness of the different verb forms. So she draw really should be she drew. And then of course, because we're looking at a countable noun, it needs to be preceded by a determiner of some form. So she drew a basketball, the basketball, my basketball, and so on. Next one is interesting, and this problem is often caused by the books that we are exposed to. So in books we will have stories, and there will be a character called Bird. Yeah. And that's kind of okay, but it's very confusing because bird is not a proper noun. Yeah, it's not the name of a person or a special category. It's a general noun. Yeah, so it's a common noun. So it's easy for folk to get into the habit of thinking about those animals in stories as only proper nouns, when in fact most often they're common nouns. So it needs to be I'm a bird, not I bird, or I'm bird, but I'm a bird. A few more interesting examples here. So we've got let's looking for the cat versus let's look for the cat. So let's look for the cat is the correct form. So let us is always followed by the base form of the verb. So let's go, let's eat, let's start, always followed by the base form. It's understandable that the person doing this is thinking it's quite active, like we are looking for the cat. And that's absolutely correct. We are looking for the cat. But that has a different meaning from the kind of instruction, the instructional language that goes with let us. So let us look for the cat is almost like an imperative in which you are telling someone what to do, and when you're telling someone what to do, you will use the base form. Once again, another example here of look and a common mistake. So look the picture, we've lost the preposition before the noun form. Some other common ones here, both stop and why. And you know already that we have that tendency, or there is that tendency, to drop the end consonant. And when you drop the end consonant, of course, then the word meaning becomes unclear. So why does not sound anything like white. So we just need to remind our colleagues to make sure that they're pronouncing the last consonant in a sound. The final example that we have on this page is they are wearing some beautiful clothes. In itself, almost a really nice structure, that future continuous form, but of course we've missed out the verb to be. I can really get that some people will think that will is already the verb to be, but for a future continuous form, you're going to need will plus be plus the verb plus ing. So we've looked at a lot on how you can teach Lexis, how you can make that awareness better in the classroom. We've looked at some errors that some teachers may make, and we've given a little bit of guidance on those, though as I've mentioned before, there's much more guidance in Swan and Smith. If we went through everything in Swan and Smith, it would probably be the whole course. But what we want to look at now is just some really nice examples of the vocab that you can use in the classroom. Now, why we want to do that is because if you're using this vocabulary, then you are being a good language model. It's very easy for us as teachers to get a little bit limited in the amount of language that we use and limited in the range of language that we use. So the following slides, they're all audio slides. They will contain examples of language that you can use, and I sincerely hope they're useful for you. Okay, the students are coming in, and this is your first opportunity to provide good language model for them. So here we go. Okay, everyone, come in quietly. Take a seat, please. Hi, come in. Take a seat. Can you sit near the front? Good. Okay. Please put your bags on your pegs. Please put your bags in your desks. Please put your bags on the back of your chair. Please put your bags in a pile by the door. Please put your bags in your lockers. We're going to do pair work, so you need to sit closer to each other. Sit in your usual teams, the same teams as last lesson. Boys on the right and girls on the left. Who's absent today? Who isn't here today? Ah, John's away. Does anyone know why? Is he ill? What's the matter with Steve today? What's wrong with Jim today? Where's Tony? He didn't look very well yesterday, so maybe he's sick. Does anyone know where Tony is? So everyone is here except Tony and Mary. So only 2 people away today. So let's take the register. Let's check to see who is here. Remember to answer, I'm here. Is everybody here? Is anyone away? No one absent today? Who's the class monitor this week? Rocky? Rocky, can you count how many people are here, please? How are we all today? How are you today, Steve? How are things? How's life? Did you have any trouble getting here? You all look freezing. Is it still snowing outside? How's the weather outside now? I see we have a few new faces. Can you briefly introduce yourselves to the class? Long time no see, Julia. How was your holiday? Did you enjoy your holiday? Does anyone have any questions for Julia about her holiday? Mary, you wanted to ask me a question. Can you ask it now? Can you ask that question to everyone in the class? Are you all feeling better today? I was sorry to hear about the accident. Did you hear about the new lunch we're having? Are you looking forward to the holidays? Just 5 minutes till the end of the class. So just 2 minutes more for that activity. Just finish that sentence, or just finish that exercise. Just finish that paragraph. Just finish that question and then put your pens down. Put your books and pencils away. Put your books and pencils in your bag. Okay, time up. Close down all the programs, but don't turn the computers off. Put your books away. Pack your things away. You may pack away now. Can I have all the dictionaries back here, please? Can I have all the coloring pencils here, please? Can I have the Play-Doh back, please? Can you make sure you clear away your desks? Can you make sure you put all your rubbish in the bin as you leave? Can someone collect all the dice? Can you go back to your original places? Can you put your chairs and desks back where they were? Can you put all the chairs and tables back into their original places? Can you collect the pictures off the walls? Can you collect the texts off the walls? Be careful not to pull off the paint from the walls. Put the homework on my desk. Put your homework on my desk. Put it in the box as you leave. Make sure you haven't forgotten anything. Whose book is this? Whose eraser is this? Don't worry, I'll clear up and put the posters on the wall, or put it somewhere where the glue or paint can dry. Pick up a worksheet on the way out. Pick up a questionnaire on the way out. Pick up a note for your parents on the way out. Pick up a timetable for next term on the way out. Try not to make any noise as you leave. No shouting, no speaking in the corridor. Get into a queue, line up next to the door. Form a queue and wait for the bell. Be quiet as you leave. Other classes are still working. Remember how much trouble you got into last week for making noise in the corridor. The front door is locked just now, so please use the back door. Does everyone know how they are getting home? Can everyone remember the way out of the building? So that's it for today. I'm hoping that the input on how you teach Lexis to younger learners mainly is of particular interest to you. And I'm hoping also that the input on common errors and also an increase in the range of language that we can use in the classroom. I'm hoping that both of those are useful for you to share with colleagues so that they can remove some of their errors and expand the model of language that they use well. So I really hope you have enjoyed this, and see you in the next class.